So, in this video today, I want to talk a little bit about porn addiction. And I think this is a really important topic to discuss because there are so many people who actually struggle with this worldwide. So, I did a little bit of research about this because this is the topic that comes up every so often inside of PDS in the webinars. People ask questions about this. But I also saw quite a few people in my practice over the years who actually admitted that they struggle with porn addiction. So, in this video, we're going to cover some stats. We're going to talk a little bit about what is actually going on if somebody is struggling here and some strategies for how to break down negative patterns or addictive patterns. I'm not sitting here saying that anybody who uses pornography is negative. That's not what I mean. What I'm trying to say is that when we look at what constitutes as an addictive habit or pattern, it's essentially anything that we get some sort of immediate satisfaction from, but we find ourselves having really negative consequences after the fact. And yet somebody struggles to stop repeating that cycle. So I did a little bit of research going into this, and I found the statistics were actually even bigger than I imagined. The NIH, the National Institute of Health, estimates that 1 in 6 women struggle with porn addiction and potentially as many as 1 in 3 men in North America. And so when we look at this statistic, I mean, that's a huge portion of the population for people who are struggling with any kind of form of addiction. And when we look at this idea of pornography addiction, I think it's really important to not judge it because, I personally don't judge because I know that behind every addictive habit are a set of needs that somebody is trying to meet, but is stuck in learned helplessness around. I want to take you through a couple examples of this for a moment. Let's say somebody uses the unhealthy expression of anger and they struggle to break this habit. They keep expressing anger through yelling, through raising their voice, through saying things that are unkind, and yet they keep repeating this pattern. Well, what's going on there? Well, usually what's actually taking place is that behind this unhealthy expression of anger, somebody in the moment that they are angry and they say everything that's on their mind and they do get mad, well, this habit in and of itself is usually meeting needs for them that they don't know how to meet in healthier ways. Anger can serve as a boundary because when you're angry and you say negative things, you can push people away with your anger. Sometimes when you finally say what's on your mind, you stop feeling unseen and unheard. And sometimes it's a subconscious strategy for people to take their power back. Another example, if somebody's picking a fight all the time in a relationship, usually what's actually happening is they're either looking for reassurance or they're looking for emotional connection. And they're trying to see that they can get a rise out of somebody to see if that's sort of validating. Behind all these things that we do as individuals that may have really strong downsides, but they're habits that are hard to break, there's actually a set of needs that somebody is starving for and really stuck in learned helplessness around. And so when it comes to pornography addiction, what's really interesting is statistically the attachment style that will often struggle the most with porn addiction is dismissive avoidance, followed by fearful avoidance, followed by anxious preoccupied individuals. I think it's really important to clarify that not all dismissive avoidance or FAs or APs struggle with porn at all, but statistically we see a skew in that direction. Now, when we look deeper at this under the pretenses of what are the unmet needs, well, what's really interesting is often the discussions I would have with clients in the past who were actually struggling with pornography addiction. They reported that the needs that were met through porn were a sense of novelty, but novelty within the framework of safety, right? So novelty without having to go out and be vulnerable, novelty within the framework of having control over their sexual experience, right? Because if you're just behind a computer screen, you don't have to feel vulnerable. You have total control of the experience. You don't have to feel out of your comfort zone, right? So it's this need for novelty while trying to maintain these needs for certainty, safety, comfort, and control. And if you look at a lot of dismissive avoidant limiting beliefs, for example, a lot of them are, I'm weak if I'm vulnerable, or I'm going to be trapped or helpless if I'm vulnerable. So you can almost see where there's these needs that are being met, but, while passing through these limiting beliefs. And when people talk about porn addiction as well, a lot of people use porn more frequently when they were out of a romantic relationship, feeling lonely, feeling disconnected. So, when we look at this idea of this habit that can obviously have detrimental side effects to somebody, especially if it really is being experienced in an addictive way by someone. Well, underneath that are actually just basic needs that human beings have that are trying to be met. And it's almost like in like a proxy way, like it's almost like this person can't really access these things directly. And so they go in these roundabout strategies to get these subconscious needs met. So when we look at this idea of like somebody needing novelty, needing connection, but being afraid, so not really feeling comfortable to be open or vulnerable, and so needing novelty and connection in the sort of framework of certainty or control or comfort. Well, what we can realize is that in order to break some of these addictive patterns, one of the first things a person is going to have to do is learn to get these needs met in healthier, updated ways. So, learning to recondition limiting beliefs that are keeping people stuck, right? Like ideas like, oh, I'm weak if I'm vulnerable, or if I establish a connection with somebody, I'm going to be trapped. Like, if somebody's stuck in that sort of framework of thinking, they're going to limit themselves from being able to access their needs in a direct way. And so the more we can actually unpack what these needs are, come up with healthier, updated ways of getting these needs met, there is going to not need to be this strategy for getting these needs met in an indirect way if you're getting your needs met in all these direct ways instead. And funnily enough, when you look at securely attached individuals and relationships, they statistically struggle with pornography addiction the most, which I find to be an interesting correlation because if you look at securely attached individuals, they also tend to be in the most long-lasting relationships statistically, healthiest relationships statistically. And it's like they have access to these needs in potentially healthier ways because of the absence of more trauma in their background and history. And so, I think it's really important to recognize that just because somebody might be stuck or might be in this place of learned helplessness, by removing the judgment from things and instead adopting an attitude of curiosity and inquiry, like actually trying to understand what root causes for people with whatever their bad habits are, you can start to realize that underneath all of those things, there's somebody really starving to have their needs met in a healthier way. And if we can use this addictive habit as a strategy to unpack what those needs are and update the ways that we get these needs met, we can start shifting out of some of these different patterns or habits. Now, I do want to say, I know that for a lot of people, sometimes people have partners who are also addicted to pornography, and I know that can be really painful for people. I'm not taking away from like that this can obviously have detriments, but I find that we never solve for things, be it in the relationship with somebody or, separate from, if you are the person going through this, by judging anything. We solve for things by understanding and establishing root cause, which can only really be done from a place of curiosity and, inquisitiveness. So anyways, sort of like a little discussion for today. I know this is something that a lot of people experience or go through. So hopefully this is helpful for you. If you are wanting to do a deeper dive on reprogramming any kind of bad habits in your life, whether it's an unhealthy relationship to alcohol or food, or just things that are not necessarily addictions but habits that you really want to break down, including pornography as well, you can check out our Breaking Addictive Habits course for free for 14 days using the link in the description box below. And I hope you enjoy, that link will actually have access to all of our courses at PDS for free for 14 days, along with all the different daily support groups that we have, like peer support groups, as well as lead support groups, along with the daily webinars that we have Monday through Saturday with myself or other coaches and facilitators. So check it out if you're interested. Thank you for stopping by. If you are enjoying this channel, please consider subscribing, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos.